welcome to Recovery People, September 25th, 2013. Thank you for joining us. I'm Kirk Zajac. Recovery People is a podcast celebrating the culture of recovery, and it's a production of Soberhood, a nonprofit of which Jason Howell is the director. Recovery People is produced by people in recovery for you, the greater recovery community. Behind the scenes, it's an opportunity for peer teams to work together for a greater cause, strengthen their voice, sharpen skills, and gain the social support and connectedness that is so crucial to the recovery process. Check us out and please consider supporting us with a donation at recoverypeople.org. You can also follow us on Facebook and Twitter for the latest. Be sure to subscribe to our show on iTunes so you never miss an episode. Dude, let's go rally. Let's erase the stigma around people in recovery. It's no longer the man under the bridge in the overcoat with a bottle of Kentucky Deluxe in his hand. We're going to look at some successful people that lead awesome lives today, thanks to their recovery. Ben Bass, Executive Director of the Recovery Alliance of El Paso and Chairman of the Board of Texas Recovers, flew in from El Paso a few nights ago, and we talk about the big Texas Rally for Recovery this Saturday here in Austin on the south steps of the Capitol from 3 to 5 p.m. Also, we get into a little about the new movie, The Anonymous People, and erasing that stigma. All this and more on this episode of Recovery People. So I am here with Ben Bass, Executive Director of the Recovery Alliance of El Paso, and he's also the Chairman of the Board of Texas Recovers. Ben, welcome to Recovery People.
Well, thanks very much.
So first, I want to talk about sort of where you come from in this whole deal. What's behind the smile and the title?
Thanks, Kirk. My name is Ben Bass, and I'm a man in long-term recovery. And what that means to me is that I haven't had a drink or a drug in the last, since 1987. And, for that, I'm very grateful.
Yeah.
What that also means is that it makes it possible for me to, and in that time, I've raised a family. I've been a good employee, a good neighbor, a good father, and a good friend. And all that has been made possible by me being in recovery. And it also makes it possible for me to be the director of an organization like the Recovery Alliance of El Paso, which is an organization of people in recovery, along with family members and community allies. We had, at the last time we counted, we had 1,380 members.
Wow, 1380.
For the longest time, we put on a rally in El Paso, and we would have about 500 to 1,000 people show up for our Recovery Month rally. And we also, a facility. It's a large facility, and it's a recovery community center and connected to recovery residences called Casa Vida de Salud. It's been in existence since 2005. And we've had over probably 2,200 people come through Casa Vida in those years.
Wow. That's awesome. So in 2005, Casa Vida became a reality. So where did this mission, if you will, start for you?
My own recovery is very basic to what I do. As a man in recovery and along the path of recovery that I've taken, I have to take certain steps and I have to go through a psychic change and, some of the part of what I do is to practice the principles of my recovery and the things that I do in my life, and also to carry the message to other people. And it's a long and convoluted story about how we got to Casa Vida, but our little recovery group became homeless over and over again because they were closing down. We didn't have any detox center. I went around banging on doors, asking people for help because people were dying in the street, and that turned into a community action movement. And I am the most unlikely activist you will ever find in your life. But, it just had to be done. So somebody came in from Dallas and established a detox center, but there was no place for people to go once they got detoxed. And so, what better use of what we do in recovery than to help people once they exit a high level of care like detox. So we opened a 30-bed residential recovery center.
Nice. And what do the activities look like at the recovery center?
Well, on the residential side, we have it's like full of programming. We have somebody gets up in the morning, they do chores, they go to groups, they have individual recovery coaching, they have more groups, they go to lunch, they come back, and the whole week is filled up like that. They either go to a 12-step meeting on the premises, they go out to go to a 12-step meeting. We believe that there are many pathways to recovery, and one size does not fit all. And we like to have people identify themselves as whether they're alcoholics or addicts, or whether their recovery wants to take a more church-based or even medication-assisted.
You mentioned something before that sort of struck a chord, and you said there were literally people dying in the street. And we see that on a daily basis. If you drive through El Paso or Austin, it's very visible. And especially, being in long-term recovery like yourself and myself, this is something we see often. And you also mentioned that, there's many pathways to recovery. And I think there are certain directions that the industry sort of needs to head towards. And especially in how it relates to care on a national level, a continuum of care. So what's the Alliance working on as far as that's concerned?
Well, we are part of something called the Paso del Norte Recovery-Oriented System of Care. Which is an effort the state has put forward to transform the alcohol and drug service delivery system here in Texas. And if it's successful, it'll mean a lot. If we're successful, we will have we're staffed with peer providers. Everybody that works at the Alliance is in recovery. From one 12-step program or another, or church-based recovery or whatever. And 90% of the people in recovery are in 12-step recovery. And what we believe that engagement with a peer provider, like one of our recovery coaches, or we call them recovery allies, because they're more than just a recovery coach provider. But engagement with the recovery ally, plus intensive clinical services, plus homeless services. If we have a recovery ally that can actually surround this person with these services, I think we have a very good chance of them getting into long-term recovery.
That's really cool. I understand, and I'm very clear on the fact that today I give to keep. And that's been a big part of my journey in this recovery. And I think that's paramount to a community level, because you just don't see that everywhere.
it's, I believe that if we give of ourselves without knowing what we're going to get back, it's going to be all that much better. And so we take baby steps sometimes, but sometimes we're able to take pretty good sized steps too in providing these peer-to-peer services. It's a peer-to-peer service, which is not like a 12-step sponsor, and it's not like a counselor. It is somewhere in between, but it's a peer provider who is practicing the principles of their pathway to recovery in such a way that it is attractive and to the person that we serve, and that the recovery ally is able to help that person decide about the appropriate level of care at any point in time. And I'd like to say, when someone calls in El Paso for publicly funded for help, say they call the OSAR in El Paso for help, and when is that person ready for help? Well, they're ready right now, and if they have to wait 12 to 15 to 20 days to get into detox or treatment, well, an old friend of mine says, how many skill saws are they going to steal from Home Depot in the meantime,
Been there, done that.
But if we can get a recovery ally engaged with that person right away, even if there's a wait for clinical services, that person has a much better chance of being there when that service is ready.
Right. I absolutely believe in that window of time. There's a certain window of opportunity in which I'm willing, and I'll be darned if I don't take advantage of that, because like you said, those skill saws are waiting at Home Depot and they're ready to get grabbed. I'll tell you what.
Old behavior, Kurt.
So tell me about the Texas Rally for Recovery.
Okay. I'm also on the board of something called Texas Recovers, which is a statewide recovery advocacy organization. We're made up of individuals and agencies of recovery community organizations like ours, like the Recovery Alliance in El Paso. We have affiliates in Dallas and Houston and elsewhere, and we're a statewide recovery advocacy organization. Mm-hmm. And we a few years ago decided that we would put on a rally for recovery, and the main reason for that is to put a positive face and voice of recovery in front of the people of Texas. We believe that stigma kills people, and we want to smash that stigma. It's like you and I and other people that we know in recovery, they show up, and these people, we want people to say, look, my name is Ben Bass. I'm a successful administrator of a nonprofit corporation. Hi, my name is Kirk, and I'm a successful radio personality, and my name is so-and-so, and I'm a successful accountant. And so the people in recovery are the largest unrepresented demographic in the United States. There's lots of ways that stigma kills people, and the main one is just the idea that people have about being in recovery. Faces and Voices of Recovery, which I'm also on the board of, which is a recovery advocacy organization out of D.C., did a poll a few years back, and out of 4,000 people who answered the phone and self-identified as being in recovery, 40% of them said they didn't seek recovery at some point because of the stigma. And those are the ones that live. We will never know how many people die from stigma.
That reminds me of one of my favorite movies. We're talking about a rally and putting on a positive face. One of my favorite movies is The Blues Brothers. And they're sitting in the car in a traffic jam on the bridge. And Jake asked the cop, "What's the holdup?" And he says, "Well, those effing Nazis, they won their court case, so they got to march." And back then there was so much stigma around that, and it's more of a joke, but if you really want to compare it, 10, 20 years ago, there was such a stigma around this that people would avoid it like the plague.
A very good friend of mine, and please don't compare us with the Illinois Nazis, okay? Because Jake hated Illinois Nazis too, and so do we. Anyway, but, a friend of mine says, in 10 years, I'd hate to be the public policy maker that was standing in the way of this recovery movement. It's huge, and it's getting bigger. People are absolutely coming out and saying, I am so-and-so and I'm in recovery. We're talking about U.S. congressmen, U.S. senators, public officials here in Texas, and public personalities, and just successful people. Every family, I'll say almost every family in America is touched by this disease in one way or the other. And I believe that if we put it in human terms, people will understand it. People do recover. And people recover every day. The problem for us is that then we become invisible. Mm-hmm. We melt back into society, and we just don't drink. We just don't use drugs. And we become one of those people.
That's kind of exactly why we're doing this right now. And that's the coolest part. Recently, a film came out called The Anonymous People, and it's stirring some stuff up. And I think it's really interesting. In it, you can describe it exactly what you were just talking about. Successful people, senators, businessmen coming out and saying, yes, I'm in long-term recovery, and look at what we can do. What role does that film play in this rally?
Well, we've been at Texas Recovers. We were part of a screening of that movie called The Anonymous People last Friday, and we're also going to be part of a screening at an organization called Tercos, which is going to be putting it on Friday, this Friday, a couple of days from now, at the Austin State Hospital on the green space.
That's the 27th, right?
That is the 27th. And it's going to be at 7 o'clock. It's going to be open air. Think picnic baskets and blankets and kids and Frisbees and this wonderful movie. Mm-hmm. This movie that smashes stigma. The movie, The Anonymous People, is documenting what's happening in the recovery movement across America today. And it's exciting stuff. There's a lot of momentum, and it's as my old friend says, woe be to that person who's standing in the way of this tide. Mm-hmm. It's going to be that old stereotype of somebody in a long coat under the bridge, clutching a bottle, is going to go away. And it's going to be replaced by people like you and me, and people like the guy next door, the people who are good parents and good employees and good friends, more spiritually centered and service-oriented. That movie points that out very well. A famous basketball player,
Chris Herron.
He says he's a sober dad, and there's no more important thing in the world to be. And I understand that. So the movie's going to be shown again on Friday night at the Austin State Hospital. Please come out and see it. And one last thing I'd like to say about the movie is that Alcoholics Anonymous General Service Office has published a letter in response to numerous members' questions about this movie. It's the first time I've ever heard of them doing that in 26 years that I've been in recovery. Mm-hmm. But the GSO of Alcoholics Anonymous basically says AA members are free to
break their anonymity.
They're not free to break their anonymity, but because I can't do that. I can stand up in front of a microphone and I can say, my name is Ben Bass and I'm in recovery.
Right.
I cannot say what the AA General Office says. As long as somebody doesn't stand up in front of a camera or a microphone and say, I'm an AA member.
Correct.
Then they're not breaking their anonymity.
Exactly right.
And no traditions were broken in the making of this film. Okay.
Well, I think it's interesting, too, and part of that whole response was basically the adage that they just don't have any opinion on it. And that's great, It
says AA members are free to become part of any kind of movement they want to. And as long as they don't break the tradition of anonymity, they're free to do whatever they wish. And
right. And I think that gets confused sometimes too.
Oh,
like I basically almost just did. It's the difference between going on the radio or in front of a camera and saying, my name is Kirk Zajac and I'm a person in long-term recovery versus my name is Kirk Zajac and I'm a member of blah, blah, blah.
Yeah. See, I can't do that. Kirk, my pathway to recovery has certain traditions that I'm very, very familiar with.
Absolutely.
And I don't dare break traditions because I might get drunk.
Right.
And I can't chance it. So, I'm very, very clear on where I stand concerning the traditions.
Yeah, I got a good primer going into this deal. I got a good media package primer before I came in to do this deal. So who's talking at the rally this year?
Well, we're going to have from the President's Office of National Drug Control Policy, we're going to have Michael Botticelli, who is the deputy director. Gil Kurlikowski is the director of the ONDCP. He serves at the president's pleasure, and I believe he's going to move on. So Mr. Botticelli, well, we never, who knows what's going to happen, but Mr. Botticelli is the number 2 guy at the ONDCP, and he will be telling his personal story of recovery.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's great.
That is, we've infiltrated the ONDCP. It's shocking. I mean, their ONDCP has this. Hey, look, 2 years ago. Listen, I was honored at the White House as a presidential champion of change because of the work that we've been doing in peer-to-peer service over the past 10 years, and that came about on account of there's now an Office of Recovery, an Office of Recovery within the ONDCP. So I went to D.C., took the tour of the White House, and we had the meeting and the award and all that stuff. And then what I didn't know was I was going to have to address all the employees at the ONDCP at the end. And guess what? It's full of law enforcement and justice type people. And I made a little bit of a joke and got them laughing, but it's a real law enforcement type corporate culture, and for us to infiltrate this law enforcement culture at the topmost ranks with people in recovery is stunning. we've got the president. If anybody wants to have some reading that will put you to sleep, read the 2014 Office National of Drug Control Policy Drug Policy Statement. Okay, it's long and there's a lot to it, but for the first time, the President of the United States has endorsed a pro-recovery agenda. Mm-hmm. And we are going to have a proclamation from Mr. Obama to read at the rally for Texas Recovers.
Wow. Finally. It blows your mind, coming that far. I've only been in this deal a short time, but,
It's like, what?
Yeah. For you, it's even more because you've been around longer than I have.
Oh, my goodness.
And that's, I almost cannot, there's few things that I can't put to words, but that is one thing that just amazes me.
It's like, I'm at the White House, right? And there's this, and I'm getting this like citation thing, and I'm thinking, what am I doing here?
Yeah. It wasn't a traffic ticket.
No, it wasn't like some meritorious driving citation, And if I compare that to the shivering, broken wreck of a man that went in the doors of my Fellowship of Recovery 26 years ago, I thought my life was over. I had no idea.
And that's what this rally is all about. I think it's harnessing the power behind the hope of that statement that you just made.
There are over 23 million Americans in long-term recovery, and we are the largest group of people that don't have a voice. And Bases and Voices of Recovery and Texas Recovers would like to give the recovery community an opportunity to have a voice.
The Big Texas Rally for Recovery is this Saturday.
Yes, Saturday.
Here in Austin, Texas.
South Steps of the Capitol.
South Steps of the Capitol from 3 to 5 p.m.
That's right.
Correct.
And there will be music, and good music, too.
Good music.
Yep. Jimmy Lee, who's a blues man from here in Austin, is gonna play to warm up the place, and up until about 3 o'clock, and then we're gonna try to keep the politicians away from the microphone as much as possible. No, and we're gonna have a few people, including Mr. Botticelli, telling their personal stories, and we're gonna express our gratitude at the people that come out.
Absolutely. I'm rallying a group of my friends to come, and we're going to pose for this big panoramic picture. It's going to be awesome. All right, ladies and gentlemen, you heard it here. Friday night at Austin State Hospital grounds. There's going to be a screening of the film The Anonymous People at what time?
7 o'clock.
7 o'clock. And then Saturday, September 28th is going to be the Big Texas Rally for Recovery, South Steps of the Capitol Building here in Austin from 3 to 5 p.m. And anything else you want to add?
Come out, rally, demonstrate. Let's march on the Capitol. Let's show them we're here.
Absolutely. I'm excited. For Ben Bass and Jason Howell, my name is Kirk Zajac. Keep coming back, folks. Once again, thanks to Ben Bass for being on this episode of Recovery People. Our theme music is sampled from Rock and Roll Boy by Chenard Walker, available at comfortstand.com. The best way to consume our podcast is subscribing to it on iTunes. For alerts and news, like our Facebook page and follow Recovery Peeps on Twitter. Recovery People is a production of Soberhood, supported by listeners like you.